Welcome. Episode 69 is the last episode of 2024. And I really wanted to do something important and insightful. And I remember last year, I had two Gen Zers on, and they made a really big deal on what they talked about. So this year, I decided to go up one generation to the millennial generation. And today we have three amazing millennials. We have Jesse Conceptricune, we have Max Conceptricune, and yes, they are brother and sister, and Talia Barnett. So welcome the three voices of the millennial generation. How are you today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, Terry.
Very happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having us.
Tell us a bit about your professional path, what you're doing today, and how did your college courses prepare you for where you are today? We'll start with Jesse.
Yeah, so I'm currently a research scientist. I just got my PhD in molecular and cellular biology. And I guess my path here has been, I started out, I went to college, was really interested in biology and thought I might be interested in research. So I joined a research lab, and each step of the process, I just got more and more experience to be able to apply to graduate school. And now I am a researcher.
And you've had many papers written.
Yes. I have multiple first author publications.
Very talented. Max, we'll go to you next.
Sure. Yeah, I'm currently a construction project manager. We do a lot of work in the industrial sector, entertainment, self-storages. Went to school at Cal Poly as an industrial engineer. And, that was very much process improvement oriented. How do we take a process, operations, and, make it more efficient? And then took that experience and passion into the construction industry, led with lean construction, applying it to, how I'm building these buildings, and just kind of run with that.
Thank you. Talia.
I'm a high school English teacher at a special education school. So I teach a couple classes, run the yearbook, lots of things within my school book club. And yeah, I studied education in college. I started as a business major. I hated it. It just wasn't for me. Realized I wanted to help people. And then I studied English and special education.
And you teach special needs kids?
Yeah, and at the high school level.
So Talia, when you think about your being in the world of special needs, was there anything that prompted you to go that path?
I was born a twin, and my twin brother has high needs special needs. So I spent a lot of time around him, and as well as the professionals that worked for him. And they were always so passionate and kind and helped him so much that, I think that was part of the reason I went into special education. I also, in college, one of the jobs that I had was working and mentoring adults with special needs. And that was really great and kind of solidified that path for me. Yeah, and I ended up just loving it. I love seeing the growth with people with special needs when you work with them. It's just you have to think of ways to teach in unique ways, which I really enjoy.
And just to say, it just sounds like you're doing such an amazing job of how you work with them. And it's like you meet them where they are because you have the background and the experience of what it's like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that's one of the most important parts of the job is figuring out where they are and where a goal is for them and trying to push them, but meet them where they are while pushing them towards their goals, kind of doing it in between where they feel like they can do it, but they're not too comfortable. So they're being challenged, but not so much that it's impossible. It's a big part of my job. And it's hard on any given day, it's very individualized on where students are and how much they can be pushed. And, it changes.
I love that you push them to their limits. However, you don't make them feel like a failure.
Yeah.
And that's probably a very fine line for you.
Yeah, you have to learn when to stop sometimes too, which is hard. Because also they're teenagers and they have a lot of other things going on too.
Great. Look at these three industrious young millennials with a life ahead of them. Who knows where they're going to go? Since this program is about creating change, and that can mean a lot of different things, but you're all young. From your perspective, how do you think you are creating change in your corner of the world today? And is it important for you to think about creating change, making a difference, making an impact? We'll start with Max.
I think in my profession, it's interesting. Like I hear about Jesse as a scientist and Talia as a teacher, and those are very impressive ways of making change in this world. For the construction industry, it's a little more literal of like before there wasn't a building there and now there is a building. But the work that we do, we'll do industrial work and building warehouses, which a lot of times turn into distribution centers for bigger companies. And you see progression in the world and economy through that. And then also just more internally with the change amongst myself and how I develop myself and trying to become someone in this world. So I'd say that's more of the change I'm trying to get through.
So talk about that for a little bit more. What exactly, you look at Jesse and you look at Talia, and yes, they are doing different than you, not better or worse, just different. And you hit upon something which I really love. You're creating change within yourself. And when we create change within ourselves, then we can go out and create change out there in the universe. So do you think it's important to make a difference with you? Forget about your surroundings.
Absolutely. I mean, I took on this challenge of becoming a construction project manager I started at 24, now 26, definitely throwing myself in there under the fire. And the career development where I'm at right now is exponential from where I was before. And trying to, again, become oneself in this world and get myself established to where I could be a provider for my future family is my complete drive in this world. So that's very important to me.
Thank you. Okay, Jesse, creating change, making a difference.
What's really motivated me through, all of my research experience is always having kind of the underlying line to my research helping someone one day. So much of my research throughout my career has been focused on infectious disease research. So in theory, that would potentially bring about change for companies to come in and develop therapeutics for infectious disease or cancers. Something else that I find really important for creating change is the ivory tower of academia seems very high and inaccessible. So I try and communicate what I do and what kind of science I do in a way that's not too hoity-toity and highbrow, that it becomes more accessible to a lay person.
And they understand what you're talking about rather than going up to the higher level, which, I, for one, don't understand.
I mean, it's very important to be able to change the way you're speaking depending on your audience. And I'm not going to go in talking out a super, super scientific way to someone who has only taken high school biology and really is not a big science person. So I try and explain things in a way that they would be able to understand.
Right. Excellent. Talia.
Yeah, so working in a special education school and the work I do, I see a lot of the change I do. It's also great because I get to see the kids through 9th grade to 12th grade. So, I see a lot of change in their writing, their reading comprehension, which is very easy to see immediately. But another part that's really so rewarding is beyond the, improving their English skills, their reading, their writing, which is super important for everyday life and adulthood. What's really rewarding is helping students build their confidence and just kind of preparing them for adulthood, learning adult skills, writing emails, resume writing, all of that I do. And one of the best parts is by the time they're seniors, they do a speech at high school graduation, which I help them write. And I've seen them from ninth grade when they came in, like as very awkward 14-year-olds to kind of going off to adulthood, which is really rewarding and fun to see how they've changed and how I've helped them.
And also, I've heard that you do all these great creative things with them, these puppet shows, and really make it fun for them.
Yeah, so I use universal design for learning, which is, kind of a multisensory approach to education. So we do a lot of hands-on projects. So I like to incorporate theater where I can. I love theater. So we've done puppet shows. We act out scenes from Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth. We recently at Jurassic Park, students made a board game for that. So there's more than one way to learn. And I try and, we also practice things like writing essays because that's needed for college. But I try different ways to help students understand and to engage with the reading.
And it's interesting to hear how 3 different millennials talk about creating change and what it means to them. I think that obviously my podcast is about talking to people that do create change in their corner of the world and why it is so important to them to make an impact, make a difference, because in today's world, it's so needed for young people to set the stage for moving forward. So thank you for your answers. Really appreciate it. Stay tuned and continue to listen and learn to understand millennials. This episode is brought to you by Try Coaching. I'm Terry Yoffe, an international 3-time certified executive business and communications coach. Are you waiting for January 2025 to start putting into play your goals and visions for what you want to create in the new year? Or are you starting to plan now for what you want to achieve, doing your due diligence and setting up ways to implement these changes? I have been working with clients for over 20 years, helping them reach their desired outcomes. And I can help you transform your own thoughts so that you too can be all that you want to be. Please reach out and let's start a conversation. So when we talk about millennials, let's maybe jump there for a second. We hear all kinds of things, and I actually looked up what people say the criticism may be about millennials, and it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just what's been written. So I'm going to just say a few and very short, get your feelings on what the perception might be and if it's answerable. Economic challenges because of the recession, rising house costs, millennials are less financially stable or responsible, cultural shifts are at the forefront of various cultural and social changes, attitudes, work-life balance, social justice, technology. And, you were the first generation to really grow up with the internet and social media. So I guess the question is, do you overtly rely on technology, work ethic, and job expectations as prioritizing job satisfaction and work-life balance? Political and social activism, they're more vocal around issues like climate change, equality. Anyway, those are just a few. Can anyone speak to any of them if you think they're true, they're not true, what you get out in your world with millennials? Jesse?
I feel like for the most part, some of it is accurate. I mean, we did grow up in a time of the internet, and we're kind of on the cusp of, we kind of saw what life was like a little bit before it became very widespread. So we aren't like iPad kids. So we still had I guess a normal childhood, but we do see what technology can do and kind of how it has benefited our society. But I think millennials are unique in that we could go back and forth because we've seen both sides. As for the financial irresponsibility, I feel like that's kind of unfair to say, since, Our society has become exponentially more expensive to live there, but not a accurate increase in salaries and jobs. So even if there have been, you mentioned there have been crazy economic recessions that millennials have just had to people are saying, oh, they're spending $8 on a cup of coffee. If they saved $8 a day, they could, buy a house, but that's just not true at all. So we're just trying to survive.
As every generation, right? It's about surviving and then figuring out how to thrive.
Yeah, it's just harder to get when everything is that much higher. You can't say that you bought your house for $40 40 years ago.
I get it. Yeah. Thank you. Max?
Yeah, I'll agree with that struggle that we're dealing with now. That's partially what I was talking about before, and trying to develop myself as best I can with really the goal to find some financial stability. But the bar of financial stability nowadays is a lot tougher. To ideally go in on a mortgage one day, it's the what do they call it? The passage in is a lot tougher. But yeah, no, I would consider us definitely on the cusp. This has been something that's come up a lot, and actually, 2 days ago at Thanksgiving, we were talking about it and came up with the term of zillennial, right on the cusp between millennial and Gen Z, because I do consider myself a millennial. When I look at, Gen Zs, they're definitely more of like what Jesse was saying, the iPad babies, and they just understand the technology a lot more. They're way more into social media at a younger age, and there's characteristics that come with that, good and bad. And then as millennial, we're still coming up like the zillennial on the cusp of, I'm still learning cursive in third grade and still coming up not fully with the technology world, but having an understanding of it. But yeah, it's crazy because even in the construction world, I think about it all the time. And like that blue collar mindset isn't there as much. I look at some of these guys I work with that are 30, 40 years old and been in the trades for 20 years, and they grind and every day and day in, day out. And I'm like, well, this next generation coming in, like, where are these grinders going to be? It's a little bit of a stereotype, but there's some truth to it, where you're not going to see as many people in the trades coming up now. Just because of the way that people are raised and growing up.
Ken Rusk, who was on my show last year, wrote a book, Blue Collar Cash, I think. And he talks about you don't need a college education to become successful. And he himself didn't go to college, and he's highly successful. And it's a very eye-opening book and conversation that he talks about from that perspective. Talia, do you have anything you want to chime in on?
Yeah, I would say I'm also a zillennial, right on the cusp there. Yeah, and it's interesting with technology and how people grow up, because I work with students that are Gen Alpha, even Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and there's a huge issue with like misinformation with being online, like TikTok, people finding news sources through that. It's not the news. And just taking things for fact when it's just someone saying something, it's like a big concern I have. And the use of AI, like there's a lot of issues with technology, with the generation, like not learning how to do things themselves with things like ChatGPT, and not being like cognizant of like the sources that they're getting their information from. So talk about technology and how it may like affect the younger generations. It's definitely it's a tool. There's some really great parts to it, but it needs to be used pretty wisely, because it can kind of create some helplessness.
I'm part of the baby boomer generation. And if you go back and look, obviously I was not a grown-up at that point, but every generation had its own challenges. A lot of baby boomers came as immigrants and didn't speak English and had to find their way. Very different than today, obviously. Even the Gen Xers, which is the next group up, and then millennials and Gen Zers and whatever else. I think every generation, you can agree or not, is we've all had our challenges, our struggles. And back as baby boomers, if something was 10 cents, it was a lot of money. So it's just progressed. And I think going from that generation to where you are, the chasm is so wide as to when I look back and see where I was at your ages, I wasn't as smart. I wasn't as proficient in how I spoke because we didn't have all the news and information and getting it like that. We turned a radio on, not what you do today. So it's just I find it very eye-opening to hear and look at the paths everybody took to get to where they are. Like every generation, you will find your way, you will find your path. And no doubt each of you will be successful as you move along. So if you were to talk about today's millennials, which we just talked about, and do you feel that those that you know are as dedicated, ambitious, and hardworking to see their path as you see yours? Jesse.
I feel like, again, there's a range. You can't really generalize every millennial by.
I understand. I'm looking at your group because you can't go outside and know. So within obviously your group of friends, where do you see yourself?
I mean, I've always considered myself a very driven person, but I around me, I'm also inspired by people that I know are also working very hard. I feel like there is good work ethic in millennials. Like they're very amenable. They don't want to step on people's toes too much. They want to make a name for themselves and they are trying very hard.
And what about the competition? It's like, get out of my way kind of a thing, because look, every generation has competition and it is there today. Somebody will stab you in the back if they think you're going to get the job and they're not, so to speak, metaphorically.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. There is competition. They're also working hard.
Okay. Max?
Yeah, I kind of see what Jesse's saying too with, in the millennial generation, there's competition in this generation and there's certain stereotypes to it. To me, it's like it stems from your upbringing. I surround myself with very like-minded friends and college mates. And I feel like, we all are very driven and want to get ahead and have the same goals and, finding our way in this world. I've also seen other friends that, you get into a complacency and, they go day in, day out to their jobs and they go through the motions, but they're not looking at those next 2-3 steps. They're just, we're in this and we're doing well, but not looking ahead. So like, that's what's really key and why a lot of my friends are my friends, where, they have that same mindset of like, how are we going to keep growing and not get complacent and just having a job and going through the motion. See a little bit of both of it.
And thank you. That's so important because it's everywhere. People that are even older, they just go along and they don't stop to get off the hamster wheel, if you will, to say, where am I? What am I doing? Do I really want to be here? Or do I want to have the courage to face my fears and say, this isn't working for me. How do I live a more purposeful, fulfilled life? I've seen it in every generation.
Absolutely.
Talia.
Yeah, I would say that people are very driven. What you're saying about competition is very true. I mean, when I graduated college, it was right after the COVID pandemic, so 2021. And the job market has been hard for a lot of, friends of mine, where there's so much competition or entry level jobs will require like several years of experience and a master's degree, which makes it really hard for people to find jobs. I don't think it really has to do with being driven. It's just very competitive. Luckily, the education field, teachers, they always need teachers. There's a pretty large rate of people, unfortunately, leaving teaching. So I'm pretty secure in my job, and we're not having too much competition. But, you know, in other fields, it can be really, really hard, and it sometimes takes a while for some friends of mine to find like a job or still looking.
Yeah. And I'm just going to share, I'm an extremely competitive person. And when I was in advertising sales, that was very competitive. And as a woman, I had some of my male counterparts try to take my business away. They never got far. Especially in sales, you have to grow a backbone if you want to be successful. And it has really set the stage for me for all of my different careers and what I've had to do to stay in them and be successful. So it's everywhere, and it's how you navigate it so that it's not bad competition, if you know what I mean, or aggressive, where there's room for everybody, but it's how you show up in the arena that counts, I think.
Just a caveat to that real quick. I'll say something on that sense, because, you know, my company, we have a lot of young mid-20-year-old people, and I would say it's good competition amongst us. Like, seeing some of us drive and get ahead, it motivates everyone else, and it's you know, could be healthy in some senses, because, you know, if we're getting each other better and the company's doing better, and, you know, as compared to, you know, beating each other down to try to get ahead.
Healthy competition. That was the word. Thank you. One of my last questions, it's a little metaphorical and a little, but if you could wave a magic wand, where do you think you'd like to be in 20 years? I'm joking, 5 years. If you could have a wand and wave it, we're just playing here. Where would you like to see yourself, if you can, in 5 years? Make it up. I'd like to be the queen of whatever. Sheba. Talia, I'll start with you.
Career-wise, life-wise.
Let's go with career-wise. That's a little easier.
Yeah, career-wise. Yeah, I mean,
again, we're making it up because 5 years, who knows? It's just a magic wand.
I really enjoy teaching. I think I'll stay there for a while. I'd like to know a little bit more how leadership works and the private, you know, how private education works. I'd like to know that more. I'm hopefully implementing some theater classes into my curriculum starting next year. So I'd like for that to really become part of things, and public speaking, and to work with students more on just understanding the college process and helping them with that. So just kind of developing my curriculum and growing more within some of these kind of opportunities.
And one of the dogs chimed in.
Yeah, he doesn't like when I'm on a Zoom call, so I don't know. That's when he chooses to bark, so sorry about that.
Jesse, thank you.
I mean, I hope to be working in industry as a scientist, creating more change, directly working towards therapeutic as opposed to being in academia, and kind of understanding the pipeline to, you know, getting a drug to the market or some sort of biologic to the market. Hopefully in 5 years, I've gotten to a point where I have people working under me and I'm learning how to be a great, you know, a mentor to younger scientists that are kind of trying to find their own career paths.
Max?
Yeah, 5 years from now, I could still see myself with the company I'm at. I'm very happy there. There's a lot of good opportunity for leadership positions within the company we're at. You know, smaller company feel where we're at in NorCal, but backed by a nationwide company. So, you know, I could see myself sticking in there, getting to the point where I'm managing people in, you know, their construction projects, starting to understand the development side and it's commercial real estate, and how are we helping our clients acquire land and do the analysis of, does it make sense to build here and buy this property? Yeah, I mean, just trying to stay hungry, back to what we were saying before, to get to that financial stability. Got a beautiful girlfriend. We'll give a shout out to Allie right there. Hopefully we're settling down and getting together and just getting to a place where we could be, living a good life.
So as we come to the end of the podcast, boo-hoo, do any of you have any last nuggets that you'd like to share with the audience? One takeaway that somebody might want to hear from a millennial. Who would like to go with that? Don't all answer at once. Jesse.
Not really sure what little nugget people want to know, except that, it's hard to be a millennial, to try and balance everything and still keep your morals and try and live a good life.
Great. Very nice. Max?
That's a bit of a weighted one. I'll try to keep it on the sense of, how to create change. And, to me, it's like, how do I create internal change within myself? Where all of us are changing day in, day out as, years, months progress. And if you're not changing, I think you're doing something wrong, because the world's changing and you need to stay dynamic and fluid with that and keep trying to better yourself and look for opportunities to get ahead.
Great. Talia?
Sometimes, at least this is what I see in education, it can be hard to see the change that you're doing day to day. It can take a while to see results from the work you put in, but you are making a difference. It may just take some time to see it.
Excellent. Wow. I cannot thank each of you enough for this absolutely incredible podcast. What a way to end the year with 3 voices of millennials, but not just millennials, very smart, very talented, very creative people that really have a voice. And I'm very glad to hear that each of you have your voice for the millennial. I cannot thank you each enough for taking the time to be on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Terry, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure. Do it again whenever you ask for it.
Thank you for having us. It was great.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Each generation has its own way of being, and we usually stay in our own lane, never venturing out. This episode brings to life the world of millennials as 3 industrious voices from this generation talk about how they are creating change, their struggles, challenges, and rewards. Reviews encourage people to listen to my podcasts. If you loved what you heard, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review. For related content on extraordinary work, please visit my website, trycoaching.com. As we close 2024, I want to wish everyone a very, very wonderful, joyful, peaceful 2025, and to thank each of the guests I had in 2024 for helping make Extraordinary Work Conversations about Creating Change as successful as it has become. Thank you to everyone. And again, a very, very happy, healthy new year from my heart to yours.